Good day, everyone. I'm Shara Jurel G. Bacsa, the next reporter. Let's have a quick recap on the previous report, which is the instrumentation. An instrumentation is the gathered data of a research. This includes the primary data and the secondary data. The primary data composes of can be in the form of survey and a questionnaire, while the secondary data can be in the form of interview or an audited financial statement. So let's begin with the next topic, which is the sample size and sampling technique. At the end of the discussion, the students are expected to understand the definition of sample size and the sampling technique. Next is to determine the appropriate sample size that will be used in the study. Finally, to know the difference between the two groups of the sampling technique. So, to begin with, let us first define sampling, sample size, and the sampling technique. Sampling is defined as the selecting of a particular group or sample to represent a population. The sample size is a count of the individual samples or observations in any statistical setting, such as a scientific experiment or a public opinion survey. The sampling techniques are the strategies applied by researchers during a sampling process. Let's proceed in determining the sample size. We often use Lobin's formula in the determining sample size. This is used when nothing about the behavior of a population is known at all. So this is the formula for it, whereas the small letter n is the number of samples, the capital letter N is total population, and the E is the margin of error. So the number of samples is equals to the total population all over quantity 1 plus total population times the margin of error raised to 2. Next is we will discuss about the two groups of sampling technique. First is the probability sampling. This uses random selection to help you select units from your sampling frame to be included in your sample. Under it, there are three classifications. First is the simple random sampling, where every item in the population has an even chance and likelihood of being selected in the sample. Next is the systematic random sampling. This is a type of probability sampling method in which sample members from a large population are selected according to a random starting point and a fixed periodic interval. Next is the stratified random sampling, method of sampling that involves the division of a population into smaller groups known as strata. In stratified random sampling or stratification, the strata are formed based on members' shared attributes or characteristics. Second is the non-probability sampling. This refers on the subjective judgment of the researcher when selecting units from the population to be included in the sample. There are 5 classifications of the non-probability sampling. First is the quota sampling. This method for selecting survey participants that is a non-probabilistic version of stratified sampling. Next is the purposive sampling. This is a sampling technique in which researchers relies on his or her own judgment when choosing members of population to participate in the study. Next is the convenience sampling. This method that relies on the data collection from population members who are conveniently available to participate in the study. Next is the snowball sampling. This method is used when characteristics to be possessed by samples are rare and difficult to find. Last is the self-selection sampling, that the respondents decides whether or not to participate. Typically, and one request without the chance for a follow-up. In a nutshell, sampling is an important component of any piece of research because of the significant impact it can have on the quality of the results and findings. Sloven's formula can be used in order to determine the sample size of the population. Lastly, there are two groups of sampling technique, namely the probability and non-probability sampling techniques. Thank you.